Hey guys, welcome to our second session on preventing burnout. I want to get straight into it by first looking at a couple of verses that I absolutely adore. The first one is this. God says to us, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And then in Psalm 23, God talks about leading us to still waters so that He can restore our souls. And just the idea that we serve a God who promises to give us rest, who says He will restore our souls, is just incredible to me. You know, like for so long, I really struggled with the concept of rest. I always felt like rest needed to be earned, you know, like it's what you did when you were exhausted already because, oh no, I'm so exhausted, I can't do anything, I better quickly rest. And let me tell you, when we do that, we don't really end up finding rest because we're too exhausted for it. And anyway, today is all about rest. And our big question is simply this: what is the place of rest in your life? What is the place of rest in my life? Because often I think we have a lot of obstacles between us and rest. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for this. Sometimes I think we think we're resting, but we're not actually doing things that are really restful. So that's a whole other thing that I'm not really going to touch on, but thought it was worth saying. But sometimes it's like we're scared to rest because we're scared to stop. We value productivity, we value efficiency, we value doing, as we talked about before. And all these things together prevent us from restful habits in our lives. And I just want to challenge you and challenge myself on this simple thing. God isn't a God who says, okay, sure, I guess you can rest in this yeah, I'll give you permission way. We serve a God who invites us to rest. We serve a God who rested and modeled rest Himself. Rest is a wonderful thing and it's a biblical thing, and we can't survive in this life or in ministry very well if we don't learn to have a healthy habit with it. For me, when I first felt God saying to me, Esther, you need to rest, was at a girls' getaway actually. Hannah was sharing on something and I just felt this prompting in my heart, like God was saying, you need to rest. This was quite a few years ago now. And even though I felt like God was prompting that in me, it didn't result in me getting better at resting. What it did was, it made me enter this massive moral dilemma or something about, I don't know, should I be resting? Because I had all this baggage around rest that's long and complicated to go into. But I think often we do have obstacles to us in rest, as I've said before. But anyway, I went on a journey with rest. And as I learned to see rest the way God sees rest, I learned something. Rest is a gift from God. We are not God. We have limitations. We are not created to go and go and go without fuel. We're not created to do and do and do without stopping. We need rest, and it's not something that's just to help us fix us already being tired and exhausted. Rest is something that prevents us from getting to unhealthy places. It's something that prevents us from burning out. It's something that prevents us from being exhausted and bitter and resentful. It's something that helps us be close to God, because this is the biggest thing I learned about rest that helped me see that it was a good thing. When we rest, we are showing trust in God. We really are. It's not letting God down. It's not letting people down. When we rest, we're saying we can stop. We can have a break because you know what? God's got this. And I think sometimes we can forget that. We lose sight of that. We think we need to keep going. We think that without us, ministries and people and whatever else will fall apart. But the truth is that life goes on. There is always need, and we can't meet every need. God is the one who meets needs. And so, I just want to say to you guys today, go on a journey with rest. And don't use rest as this thing that you do because you're tired. Plan in rest before anything else. And rest includes that still, silent time with God. Figure out what quality rest looks like in your life, and then figure out how to prioritize it. One of the things I've learned to do is when I book in times of Sabbath or rest, which by the way with kids is quite a tricky thing, but when I'm able to book those in well, I talk about them like they're times that are booked out. So it might actually be quality time with Nate, our date night. For me, that is restful. My love language is quality time. I need that. And so if other things come up, it's like, no, unless it's an emergency, that is time where I'm in a place of rest, enjoying time with my husband. For me, the first half an hour after I wake up is time that I spend with God. And that is restful time for me. And that's booked out time. So things, even the kids, often, unless there's something going on, they know that is time that mummy spends with God. And even if they sit next to me, that's okay, but it's time I'm spending with God. But I also want to actually say, rest is also, it's spiritual. It's time with God, and it's other ways that you find rest, but it's physical. Actually realizing, does my body need sleep? Okay, let me try and get to sleep earlier. Is my body, how is it feeling? Actually being in tune with it and going, physical rest is really important. Because when I'm sleepy, when my body is wrecked, it's hard for me to be still with God. It's hard for me to be present with people. It's hard for me to function. And so when I'm talking about rest, I'm talking about all aspects of it, the spiritual rest, but also physical rest. And often they're one and the same because they just go hand in hand. And so I want to ask you today, what would it look like to prioritize rest in your life? What would it look like to tackle some false narratives about rest in your life? What would it look like to let God lead you beside still waters? What does it look like to let God restore your soul? He wants to do that. He's not interested in us working and working and working and working and working without stopping. He's interested in walking alongside us in this life. He's interested in drawing us to still waters and restoring our souls. He really is. I know I've been quite repetitive today, and it's actually a day where I've been very tired. This home isolation stuff's been a tricky thing, but I just really wanted to share this. And part of me giving grace to myself in this is realizing I wasn't going to plan this talk. I just wanted to talk and let God just bring out what He can, because it's just in a space where there hasn't been much prep time, and that's okay. But I hope that there's something in here that encourages you. So again, our big question is simply this: what does rest look like in my life? And I'm also going to, like last week, just chuck up a few reflective questions for you to think about. And we're not going to do the Zoom session locked in after this anymore, because what I realized is that in this space, people, if they do want to connect, they often want to connect one-on-one. And so what I'm asking is that if there's things you want to chat to me or anybody else about with this stuff, just reach out and let's do that. I'm so happy to Zoom in with anybody and just talk about things, see how you're going, share how I'm going, talk about rest, talk about whatever else God brings up. All right, enough for me now. Bye.